Have you ever stopped to wonder what your cat does when it leaves the house at night? Is he just exploring the neighborhood, or is he hiding something you would never imagine? Stay with this real story. You will be surprised. My cat, Jasper, you have always been independent, but lately your behavior has been different. He came back later and later, covered in dust and with a strange smell, as if he had been through unfamiliar places. Sometimes he would arrive breathless, as if he had run long distances. Others contained small, enigmatic objects that I had never seen before. At first, I thought it was just feline curiosity, until I realized it happened every night. That's when I decided to follow him. And what I discovered completely changed the way I see cats. At first, Ethan thought he was overreacting. Maybe Jasper was just hunting or exploring wastelands. But as the days passed, the discomfort grew. He began to wonder what his cat was doing during those hours away from home. Had he found another place to sleep? Was he getting into trouble? Or worse, was he going somewhere dangerous? He had never considered this possibility before, but now it was impossible to ignore. The questions wouldn't leave his head. Until one morning, Ethan woke up in the middle of the night and saw Jasper's silhouette standing on the threshold of the kitchen door. The cat was motionless, looking outside as if it was waiting for something. That sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. His instinct told him there was more to the story. He decided he needed to find out the truth. After all, how many people actually know what their cats do when they leave the house at night? What if Jasper was hiding something he would never have imagined? By the way, does your cat have any strange behavior at night? Has anything curious happened? Comment here because I really want to know if anyone else has gone through this. Ethan Parker has always had a peaceful routine in Seattle, Washington. He lived in a modest house in the Queen Anne neighborhood, a residential area known for its tree-lined streets and old houses overlooking the city. I worked as a graphic designer and spent most of my time at home, especially at night. His only companion was Jasper, a cat with intense green eyes, who he had adopted 3 years earlier from a local shelter. Jasper was always independent. He liked to curl up on the couch during the day and go out exploring when night fell. It was common behavior for a cat, so Ethan never worried, at least until now. Over the past few months, he began to notice a strange pattern. Jasper left at the same time every night, almost as if he was following a routine. Always around 11:45 p.m., the cat would get up, walk to the little door in the kitchen, and disappear into the darkness. At first, Ethan didn't pay much attention, but as the days passed, he began to notice something different. Not only did Jasper go out every night, he also came back later and later. Before, he would return around 3 or 4 in the morning. Now, sometimes it only appeared when the sun was already rising. The first sign that something was wrong came when Jasper started coming home in an unusual state. Some nights his fur was dirty, covered in dust and small dry leaves, as if he had walked through an abandoned lot or crawled through some tight spot. Other times it would come back with a strange smell, a mixture of rust and damp earth, as if it had been near rusty metal or in an enclosed space for a long time. What bothered Ethan the most were the small objects that started to appear. First, it was a piece of dark fabric stuck to Jasper's claws, then a small plastic toy, old and worn out, like the ones small children lose in the park. One night, the cat brought something even stranger, a yellowed piece of paper, folded several times. Ethan tried to open it, but it was so dirty and torn that it was impossible to read what was there. Sometimes Jasper came back breathless, as if he had run long distances. Other times he seemed agitated, pacing around the house before finally calming down and going to sleep. It was as if he was restless, as if something out there was still calling to him. Ethan began to wonder where the cat went every night, and more importantly, why it kept coming back looking weirder and weirder. Ethan Parker could no longer ignore Jasper's unusual behavior. Determined to understand what was going on, Ethan decided he needed to follow Jasper and find out where he went every night. On the evening of November 12, 2023, Ethan prepared for his first monitoring attempt. He put on a heavy coat to face the damp Seattle cold and positioned himself near the kitchen door, waiting for Jasper to come out. As soon as the clock struck 11:45 p.m., the cat, as always, walked calmly to the door and disappeared into the darkness of the yard. Ethan waited a few seconds and then opened the door carefully, trying not to make any noise. The cat made its way across the lawn, through the fence, and walked toward 3rd Avenue West. Ethan tried to keep a safe distance, but in a matter of seconds, Jasper suddenly stopped, turned his head, and in one agile movement darted in the opposite direction, disappearing into the bushes surrounding Kerry Park. On the second night, Ethan tried something different. He positioned his cell phone in the kitchen window, leaving the camera recording to record the exact moment of Jasper's departure. When he reviewed the images the next morning, he noticed that the cat was acting strangely cautious. He walked out slowly, looked around, as if checking if anyone was watching him, and then quickly disappeared. Ethan repositioned the camera for the next night, trying to get a better angle, but Jasper always seemed to know exactly where it was. In one of the videos, he even stopped and stared at the lens for a few seconds before leaving the scene, as if he was daring his owner to try to follow him. The nights passed, and Ethan's frustration only increased. Jasper was spending more and more time away from home. If before it returned at dawn, now it began to disappear for even longer periods. On November 15th, he went out as usual, but this time he did not return in the morning. Ethan spent the whole day worrying, looking out the window and calling for the cat, but there was no sign of him until almost noon, when he finally appeared at the door. He was exhausted, with dirty paws and a small scratch on his ear. He seemed to have been through something intense, but as soon as he ate, he acted as if nothing had happened. The same day, while Ethan was out to a cafe on West Gala Street, he was surprised by a neighbor, Mrs. Holloway, a woman in her late 70s who lived a few blocks down. She casually mentioned that she had seen Jasper a few nights before, but in a place that didn't make sense. According to her, the cat was near an abandoned warehouse on Elliott Avenue, far from the neighborhood. That didn't make sense. Jasper had never gone this far before, at least not that Ethan knew of. Tired of speculation and determined to get concrete answers, Ethan decided he needed a more efficient solution. That same night, he bought a small GPS tracker for pets. The device was lightweight, discreet, and could be attached to Jasper's collar without him noticing. After configuring the application on his cell phone, he waited for night to arrive. At 11:40 p.m. on November 16th, Ethan placed the GPS collar on Jasper and watched as he prepared to leave. This time, there would be no way to escape without leaving a trace. As soon as the cat passed through the door and disappeared into the darkness, Ethan picked up his cell phone and saw, for the first time, the little blue dot moving on the map. His heart sped up. He was about to find out exactly where. Jasper went every night. Ethan followed the little blue dot on the map with bated breath. The tracker showed that Jasper wasn't randomly wandering around the neighborhood as he thought. The cat had a fixed destination, a well-defined path, as if it were following a precise routine every night. As soon as he left the house, Jasper crossed 3rd Avenue West and headed south, passing through backyards and narrow alleys. Within minutes, he was well away from the Queen Anne neighborhood. Ethan was surprised to realize that the cat was not just exploring the surroundings of the house, but moving a considerable distance, crossing busy streets and unfamiliar areas. The blue dot moved quickly until it reached Elliott Avenue West, near an abandoned warehouse. Ethan felt a chill as he remembered what his neighbor Mrs. Holloway had said a few days earlier. According to her, she had seen Jasper in those parts, but Ethan didn't want to believe it. Now, seeing the GPS data, he no longer had any doubts. Something was taking Jasper to that place every night. The cat remained in the area for about 40 minutes, moving back and forth around the building. The warehouse was an old building with broken windows and a rusty chain-link fence around it. From the satellite images on the map, Ethan realized that the building had been closed for years. There was no apparent reason for Jasper to go there. Still, he didn't leave my side. What could be happening? After almost an hour, the cat resumed its path, heading west until it reached an even stranger place, Mount Pleasant Cemetery, one of the oldest in Seattle. The little blue dot on the app stopped there. Ethan felt a chill when he saw that. Why was Jasper visiting a cemetery in the middle of the night? Was it just a coincidence, or was there something more? The cat remained in place for another 20 minutes before finally leaving and heading towards the last point on its route. Ethan watched in disbelief as Jasper headed toward an old apartment building on West Garfield Street. He knew that place. It had been vacated months before after a fire hit one of the upper floors. Since then, the building was closed, without residents and without electricity. But there was Jasper, standing in the same spot for several minutes. The GPS indicated he was inside the building. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't possible that a cat was going to an abandoned building every night for no reason. There was something or someone inside. Restlessness took over him. He needed to discover the truth, but just looking at the GPS wasn't enough. It was time to follow Jasper personally. The next night, Ethan decided he could no longer just watch the GPS. He needed to see with his own eyes what Jasper did every night. He put on a heavy coat, grabbed a flashlight, and left the house shortly after the cat went through the door. He followed the same route he had seen on the app the night before, keeping a safe distance so as not to scare him. The freezing November air made walking even more uncomfortable, and the city was silent, with few lights on in the side streets. Jasper crossed 3rd Avenue West, cut through a dark alley, and headed toward Elliott Avenue. Ethan felt a shiver when he realized that the cat walked with confidence, as if he knew exactly where he was going. He didn't hesitate. He didn't stop to sniff or explore other paths. It was as if it had a very specific purpose. When Jasper arrived at the abandoned warehouse, Ethan hid behind a pile of rubble and watched. The cat easily jumped the fence and disappeared through an opening in the side of the building. Ethan waited a few minutes, then gathered his courage and crossed the field. Rust from the fence scratched his jacket as he forced his way through. The warehouse was dark, and the smell of old wood and damp made the room even more uncomfortable. He turned on the flashlight and swept the beam of light across the space. What he saw made him catch his breath. Near a pile of old boxes sat at least half a dozen other cats. Everyone seemed well fed, some cuddled up in old blankets, others watching Jasper with interest. But what really caught Ethan's attention was the figure sitting in the corner of the warehouse. An elderly man wearing worn-out clothes held a small bowl of food. He petted Jasper as the cat curled around his legs. Ethan felt his heart speed up. Your cat wasn't just wandering around aimlessly. He was going to that man every night. Jasper was not an occasional visitor, but rather a faithful companion to someone who seemed to have lived there for months. The old man looked frail, but his eyes shone with gratitude as he saw Jasper approaching. Ethan looked around and realized the man wasn't alone. Other cats also seemed to have adopted that place as a refuge. The truth finally made sense. Jasper was taking care of someone. Every night he left the safety of home to bring company to someone who had no one. He divided his time between Ethan's comfortable home and that makeshift shelter, where his presence seemed to be the only light in the darkness. Ethan didn't know what to say or how to react. He just stood there, watching in silence. He felt a mixture of amazement and admiration. All this time, he thought Jasper was hiding something from him, but in reality, the cat was just following its own instinct, living a second life that Ethan could never imagine. After all, cats really are mysterious creatures, and we may never find out everything about them. And now he wondered, do other cats have secrets too? Ethan came home that night with his mind full of questions, but one certainty. Jasper wasn't just an ordinary cat. He would never look at his pet the same way again, knowing that while he slept peacefully in his bed, Jasper went out on a silent mission. All this time, he thought the cat was just exploring, when in fact, he was the only company for someone who had no one else. The connection between the two worlds was something Ethan would never have imagined. Over the next few days, he didn't try to stop Jasper from leaving. On the contrary, he started preparing small portions of food for the cat to take with him on his nightly visits. Eventually, Ethan worked up the courage and began discreetly leaving. Supplies near the store. The old man never asked anything, and Ethan never explained. He just accepted that somehow Jasper knew what he was doing. Now I need to know, if you could put a camera on your pet for one night, what do you think you would find? Does he have a secret life that you can't even imagine? Tell me here in the comments, because I'm really curious to know your theories. If this story has stuck with you so far, leave a like, because it helps me a lot to continue bringing more stories like this. And if you're not yet subscribed, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any of the next stories. In fact, if you like stories about our feline friends, click here to watch the next video, because I'm sure you'll be surprised.